is, I interrupt, it's the extreme elements.
Oh, so you're now throwing these labels?
Yeah.
Why am I extreme?
Okay, I think
Explain to your viewers why am I extreme?
Because your attempt to deny what happened on October the 7th is an extremist.
Oh, so I believe you are an Islamophobe and a genocide enabler for not using the correct term to describe Israel's indiscriminate genocide.
That's fine.
Like he's acting like a little girl. He's so flabbergasted. He doesn't know what to say. He didn't know how to respond.
I firmly echo the sentiments of the 91% of 13,550 people polled that believe you're an Islamophobe.
Let's talk about this one. Afterwards, a few people said we should be boycotting Piers Morgan, which I don't have an opinion on that currently. And Dilly Hussain went on to speak with him, and let's watch it.
Well, now, should you boycott Piers Morgan? That's me, of course. A number of people seem to think so online. The hashtag's been trending all week, pushed by several high-profile Muslims and pro-Palestinian accounts. That's despite the show, in my opinion, doing more to give a platform to pro-Palestinian voices since this war began than any other, probably in the world.
End the blockade, the end the apartheid, the end the occupation.
The notion that Israel is defending itself is as absurd as the notion that the rapist is defending itself from the victim.
That's a big charge to make about the President of the United States.
He has just lied before getting any evidence.
But dealing with Israel is so difficult. It's like being in a relationship with a narcissistic psychopath.
One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Have you never heard that?
Bullshit.
It's funny because that was the one clip where they included his response. Like in this segment where they're showing that, oh, look, I had so many pro-Palestinian speakers on, they were allowed to say this and allowed to say that. He didn't play his response to those statements by those people. He didn't play the pushback. He didn't play how he introduced some of these people as controversial and extremists and all this stuff. He didn't play any of that.
Just numbers. They are not numbers. They are human.
Well, despite this, the campaign against me has been led by the AN Institute and backed by several prominent voices in the community. Here's what lawyer Mohammed Akunji...
By the way, spoiler alert, he talks the whole time. That's another thing. When Piers has any other guest on, he gives them a fair amount of time to speak. Piers Morgan brought Dilly Hussain on so he can basically lecture him in front of the whole audience and not let him speak. That is basically what happens.
Really, genuinely do not think there's a television news show in the world that has given a more consistent or bigger platform to pro-Palestinian voices. And honestly, the only interviews that have got fractures have come when I've asked the question, do you view Hamas as terrorists? Do you condemn what they did on October the 7th? And if people prevaricate then, I have got angry.
Every single time, because he thinks it's non-negotiable. Who cares what you think? Frankly, I'm sorry, you're a journalist. Who cares what you think? Your job is to report facts. And if people disagree on the facts, then you have to pull out definitions or you have to pull out facts to prove it to them. You have to pull out authoritative sources to prove it to them. You fail to do all that. You just say, do you really not believe it happened? Do you really reject this? Do you really not think that this took place? And that's not an argument, Piers. It's not.
The pro-Palestinian voices haven't tried to do that. They've accepted it was an appalling terrorist attack. And then we move on to often very civilized debate. But you know, if you can't assess what happened then, for what it clearly was, civilized debate, I have a problem with that. Now,
we have a problem with you refusing to condemn Israel after killing 20,000 innocent men, women, and children. We have a problem with you. Can we treat you that same way? Can I bring you on my show and berate you for 20 minutes or 15 minutes? 2/3 of which I speak for, by the way, just berating you, ask you loaded questions, not let you finish, not let you clarify, and then basically call you a horrible human being and an extreme person for not condemning the deaths of 20,000 innocent men, women, and children? Pathetic. Pathetic.
I just think overall, I don't get the boycott. Why would you want to stop people watching a show that has so many voices giving your side of this story?
Is our segment going to be as courteous as the one you just did with Mark Regev?
You think that was courteous?
I think it was courteous and respectful.
Yeah,
do you think we can have that engagement?
Do you think I asked him good questions?
You gave him enough time to answer without interjecting.
You know what I think about Mark Regev? He's always very respectful to me. He answers the questions. You may not agree with the answers.
I will answer all your questions.
But when people come on, Jeremy Corbyn, the doctor earlier this week, when people come on and simply won't give a yes or no answer to a yes or no question, that also can be aggravating. You know, I don't, look, sometimes I get a bit intemperate. Sometimes I do get a bit emotional about stuff. It's an emotional story, right?
Do you want to use this opportunity to apologise to 1 billion Muslim women?
No.
Why is that?
Because it was completely misconstrued.
because he was in response to the whole filth comment,
Yes.
isn't it? Yeah?
So the context of my question was that if you want to treat women in the way that this member of his organization...
Why was that your instinctive response?
Because I felt that that quote was so disgusting that one of his own group had talked about needing to get rid of a secular law, bring in Sharia law, so you could get rid of LGBT filth and feminist filth. And then the first reaction of a doctor was to say, I agree. And I was like, really?
Okay.
That's how you want to treat women?
Okay.
You want to treat women as feminist filth? Now,
Did you catch that? That's how you want to treat women? You want to treat women as feminist filth? That's not what he said. And the context was that the UK was injecting feminist filth into Muslim countries. Are they injecting feminist women into these countries, or are they injecting feminist ideology into these countries? Which one, Piers? Which one? This is why I don't think you listen. I don't think you care about listening. You have an agenda and you're trying to achieve it. That's it, frankly. That was the context of the quote you just quoted. So it's about an ideology, not about the people. And if women want to live under Islamic Sharia law, doesn't feminism necessitate that they have the right to choose? Sad.
got clipped up purely as me saying, what, you want them to be oppressed? That wasn't what I said. I don't think actually anyone who watched the whole thing like you did.
People have seen your monologue.
Yeah.
They've seen your clarification.
Yeah.
And it's still trending.
Yes, because the original clip was so misleading. It made out...
I watched the whole thing. I watched the whole thing beginning to end. We just went through it together. Nothing about it is misleading. He propagated Islamophobic and bigoted rhetoric in response to a question of why do you think women accept Islam? Who mentioned oppression? Or did you assume that anyone who's not a feminist is oppressed? Or did you assume that anyone who's Muslim is oppressed? Or did you assume that Muslim women are oppressed? Or did you assume that they're oppressed because they don't have feminism? Which one is it?
That I think all women who are Muslims are oppressed, or all those who want to become Muslims would be heading towards oppression. So I don't feel that.
So you don't want to apologize to those Muslim women who were offended?
No, I want to apologize to anybody who watched the clip that was put out.
What about those who have watched?
And in my view was deliberately misled. Okay. Deliberately misled.
This guy is the worst liar in the world. Like, absolutely. Maybe he's actually narcissistic. Maybe he actually believes himself because I don't know, maybe he's a narcissist.
Because I don't believe that.
What about your statement from 2019, you and I, on the LGBT issue? You described Muslim parents protesting peacefully within the law of the land as they're behaving as if they're in Islamabad. Do you stand by that comment?
What was it? Remind me of that.
Muslim parents in Birmingham protesting against LGBTQ education to be taught to 4 or 5-year-olds. You said twice with Saman Fareed, and I had to check you the second time. You said, why are they behaving like it's Islamabad?
Okay, look, I don't remember us doing that, but I'll go and check it and I'll give you a response when I've checked it.
If you did say that, do you think that's an appropriate comment?
It depends. I mean, it depends. I'm trying to remember. I was on Good Morning Britain, right? Right, so this is 4 years ago. Yeah. I'd have to go back and look at it. I would have probably taken the view that if people were protesting in a very aggressive manner about LGBT education, I would probably think at the time that that was inappropriate.
Why Islamabad?
I don't know. I have to go back and look at the quote, right?
Another instinct.
I wish Dilly was a little more harsh with him, a little more rough. Why Islamabad? Because they're Muslim? Why? I don't know. No, you can't not know. You made a comparison for a reason. Why? Okay, think. Why would someone make such a comparison? I don't know. I wish this was Dilly's show so he could play the clip the same way Piers plays other people's clips. I wish. That would have been so beautiful. But that was a beautiful point by Dilly.
Response.
Okay, but you haven't mentioned this before, so you've mentioned it to me now. I'll go back and watch it. I will. I'll go back and watch it. I'll give you a measured response. But let's get...
I don't know if this has happened yet. I'm waiting for it personally. I'm waiting for it. And I hope Dilly keeps calling on him to do it.
Sharia law. Do you hate Sharia law?
I don't hate Sharia law.
You said you know about Sharia law. So what credentials...
I know that Sharia law operates in a number of countries around the world.
That's not true.
And I know that in somewhere like Afghanistan, the women who are under Sharia law imposed by the Taliban are deeply oppressed. Would you agree with that?
What does that mean?
Qualifications
well, hang on.
What does that mean?
Would you agree with that?
What does that mean?
Would you agree with that?
What qualifications do you have?
Let's try to reach points of agreement.
Yes.
Do you agree that the way the Taliban treats women is oppression?
I'm going to answer your question.
Can you answer it?
I will answer you.
Well, answer it.
But I want to know why.
Well, don't answer supplementary first.
but
answer my question.
You said you know about Sharia law.
I've just asked you a specific question.
I just want to know what your credentials are.
I'm just
speak about this.
I'm just asking you about the situation in Afghanistan,
There are
where the Taliban interpretation and implementation of Sharia law, in my opinion, and the opinion of most people outside of Afghanistan.
Who's most people?
Well, I'm about to ask you whether you agree with it.
Most people.
Do you think the way women are treated in Afghanistan by the Taliban
There are aspects
is oppression or not?
There are aspects of misapplication of Sharia
No
law.
education?
There's a... Please, we're going down that road again, aren't we?
Well, you tell me.
I've just said to you, there are misapplication of Sharia law, not just in Afghanistan, across the breadth.
So is the Taliban misapplying it?
I'm asking you, what is your expertise to even comment on this?
Sorry, it's my show. I do the question.
But you invited me.
He always does that. The guy asks, what are your qualifications to talk about it? And he's like, it's my show. That's not a qualification. This is technically my show. Does that make me an expert on anything I talk about? It's so sad. And he keeps doing that. He keeps saying it's my show, where you're talking about my religion, where you're talking about my people. I don't give a damn if it's your show. You're talking about my people. You're going to be checked. You say something incorrect, you're going to be checked. You pretend you know about something that you have no idea about, you're going to be checked. If you had a doctor on your show and you were spouting complete pseudoscience nonsense about the medical field on your show, do you not expect the doctor to check you? Do you think that the doctor would not have the right or maybe even the obligation to check you on your show? Why is it any different when it comes to Muslims and Islam? That when you lie or misrepresent Islam, lie about or misrepresent Islam to such an extent that it dehumanizes Muslims, that we shouldn't check you? We shouldn't ask, what are your qualifications? Where did you get this from? Provide evidence. I don't know why he thinks he's exempt. You're not exempt, Piers. You're not. I don't care if it's your show.
To ask you a question, you haven't answered it. Is the Taliban implementing Sharia law accurately or not?
Not entirely and comprehensively.
Okay, so we can agree that there is oppression of women.
There is
no, that's not even the same thing. That's not the same thing. It's literally, it's misapplication of Sharia equals oppression of women. The West doesn't apply Sharia. Does that mean women are oppressed? Can you define what it means for the love of God?
Aspects to reform and review in the education system of Afghanistan.
Would you say the way women are treated in Afghanistan right now by Taliban is oppressive?
I don't appreciate this.
There's a troll in the chat.
Of course you don't.
I don't.
Because you know why?
I'll tell you why.
Do you know why?
And it is this.
Because someone will clip up you saying the Taliban are oppressing women, and before you know it, Dilly, you will be trending worldwide. Everyone will go, wow, Dilly Hussain says Muslim women are oppressed.
It is this.
You see how easy it is to mislead people?
It is this type of questioning what makes people think you are Islamophobic.
Yeah, exactly. This is why you want to boycott me, because you don't want me asking difficult questions.
It's got nothing to do with it.
You don't want me asking difficult questions.
So the reason why people are calling for your boycott is because you offended 1 billion Muslim women.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No.
Yes, you did. Why is it trending?
Okay, as I've just said to you, I could now clip up you criticizing the Taliban. Wait. Criticizing the way Taliban treat women under Sharia law.
He's such a child.
Just that bit of you.
I swear, he's such a child. I've seen this numerous times on his show. Someone's like, you did this. You said this. He's like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. He actually sounds like a child. No, I didn't. I didn't say that. No, I didn't. He's like, wait, let me finish. He actually sounds like a child. You offended 1 billion Muslim women. No, I didn't. Is it up to you to say whether they were offended or not? We're not saying it was justified, not justified. It's just a statement that you did offend them. You don't care about it. Okay, say I don't care. But you didn't say that. You said, no, I didn't.
Looking awkward and conceding. It's not right? And then before you know it, it becomes Dilly Hussain whacks the Taliban. This is wrong. Women are being oppressed, blah, blah, blah. And you'll sit there going, hang on. But that's how it works. It's misleading. Okay. It's deliberate. But you have it's antagonistic. I don't have form.
You have form.
No, I don't.
You have form.
No, I don't.
Do you want to give me the example? You want me to give you the example?
Let me give you a better example. Let's go back to 2003, when this country, my country, launched an illegal invasion of Iraq. Okay. Right? Who stood up then? Right? For Iraqis. Who stood up for innocent people in Iraq and launched the biggest media campaign against the British government in modern times? Me. Okay. Right? Do you know that? Yes. Do you remember that? Absolutely. Do you give me any credit for that? Or do you look at me as the Muslim basher? Because I'm not, and you know I'm not.
So we're going back to 2003. Why don't we talk about 2019? Why don't we talk about...
You went back first.
No, the fact that you have no qualifications to talk about jihad. You don't even have a primary principles basis to talk about
No
jihad
complications.
or Sharia.
I've been a journalist for
No, well, you
35
haven't.
years. I've had to cover this for 35
And
years.
you never pose these such questions to any of your Israeli guests about why
You've literally just heard me for 10 minutes ask difficult questions.
Netanyahu and
Yep.
senior diplomats who have used biblical verses,
Yep.
biblical verse of Amalek
Yep.
to carry out
Yes.
genocide. Have you questioned anyone about that?
Did
from
you
a
watch my
religious
show last night?
Did you question?
you watch my
any
show last
Israeli
night?
diplomat? No, I didn't.
Okay.
Okay.
You wouldn't have seen Norman Finkelstein then for half an hour.
See, that's the thing. For some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason, he thinks just having people on his show to say certain things is enough. But saying something is not enough. How is it received by the host? What is the host's response? That's what we're questioning. When you have, Norman Finkelstein on and he says something, and you don't refute it, you don't rebuttal it, that's great. But then you have someone else there whose job is to rebuttal it. Okay, that is fair. But then when you have Muslims on and you as the host are combating everything they say, not from an academic perspective, but from a personal perspective, cutting them off, intentionally asking them loading questions, trying to make them look bad and getting angry that they don't just agree with your personal opinion or you and your squad's personal opinion. I don't know who you roll with. That is what we're mad about. And then you don't give the same treatment to other guests. I guarantee that the Israeli spokesperson you just had on was not grilled as much as you're grilling Dilly Hussain. And definitely was not grilled as much as the doctor that you had on that we just reacted to and we just discussed. I don't know why that's so difficult for him to understand. It's the severity of it.
Talking exactly about that.
I'm talking about yourself questioning your guests.
You've just literally heard me
I'm asking about
grilling
you.
Netanyahu's spokesman.
You call that grilling?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
You call that grilling?
Yes. And by the way, if you answer the questions in the same respectful way he does and answer the questions, it would be more respectful.
Have I been
The tone.
disrespectful?
No, because you won't answer the questions.
What question do you want answered?
I just asked you, do you condemn the way the Taliban treat
I
women?
just said to you that there are applications and misapplications of Sharia law, not just in Afghanistan, across the breadth of the Muslim
Okay,
world.
let's go over the stuff that was contentious with the doctor, right? I asked him, was what happened October the 7th a terror attack? Was it?
I believe it to be a military offensive by various factions of Palestinian groups, not just Hamas, and many of them are not even banned under UK law.
Was it a terrorist attack?
Pardon?
Was it a terrorist attack?
Have you come to an agreement about what it means to be a terrorist?
I've got the full rundown of what terrorism is, as I had at the time.
But you didn't.
No, I had it. I wanted to know what the doctor's interpretation of
I'm
it
not the
was.
doctor.
What's your interpretation of terrorism?
Terrorism
Yeah.
is an act of violence targeting children and civilians to advance a political...
Correct. Is that what Hamas did on October the 7th?
Is that what you think? Is that what you think?
I'm asking you.
I don't believe it was an act of terrorism. No.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Even though they literally did what you just articulated as a definition of
Do
terrorism.
you have proof that they targeted women and children, civilians
Yes.
specifically? What's the proof?
I'll tell you the proof.
What's the proof?
You want?
Oh, the GoPro videos.
Oh, you don't think it happened?
Oh, the GoPro videos.
So also
Did you
like
see
the
that?
doctor-
Did you see that? He was like, I'll tell you the proof. You don't think it happened. Where's the proof? You just said, I'll tell you the proof. And then said, you don't think it happened. Really? That's not proof, Piers. Piers, that's not proof. I want to talk to him off TV, just one-on-one, and ask, what the hell's the matter with you? What's wrong with you? Seriously. He has to know he's being inconsistent. He has to know. Like, no. When you're inconsistent, it punches you in the stomach. It hits you on the chin when you're inconsistent. Because you feel cognitive dissonance. You feel like you're just like frustrated when you're inconsistent. That's why people feel cognitive dissonance, for lack of a better explanation, to simplify it. He has to know. Am I wrong? He has to know.
You deny?
No.
You
I've
deny
seen the videos.
you
I'm
deny
a
it
journalist.
happened.
I've authenticated the videos.
Right.
I've seen the videos.
Right.
But show me the proof
Ah.
that women and children were specifically
Look
targeted
at his
as
face.
opposed to...
They were
as
literally burned alive in homes.
Okay, where's the proof?
People were beheaded.
Proof.
Babies were killed.
Name me one child. One child was beheaded. Name me one child that was beheaded. And I will mourn and condemn with you.
I just said people
Name me
were
one
beheaded.
child.
I didn't
No.
say a child.
No primary source
right?
subject.
No. So just to be
No
clear,
primary source
just to be
evidence.
clear, like the doctor, you do not believe that anyone was beheaded, that children were killed. Let me clarify where I'm wrong here. Were these things happening?
Israeli civilians were killed.
How many?
I don't know. Mark Regev doesn't even know. We need to first
No,
establish.
they do know.
How many?
We know at least
how many
1,200 people,
Israeli
including
citizens?
around 400 soldiers. So we're assuming 800 civilians
Okay.
were killed, and we know at
How
least
many of them were killed by
at
Israel?
least another 200 odd civilians were taken hostage,
How many
right?
of them were killed by Israel? For that
How many do you
direct
think?
him? A lot higher
No,
than a
it's
lot
not.
higher. Yes, it is.
There's no evidence of that.
Of course it is.
No, it's not.
Just look at the Nova. Just look at the Nova Music Festival and look at the burnt-out
Right.
cars.
You see,
Hamas doesn't even have
this is the
firepower
problem,
to
isn't
do
it?
that.
The real reason you want me boycotted is I'm telling the truth.
Okay.
And what you're doing is trying to convince viewers, and maybe you're Muslim.
What the hell is wrong with this guy? That he sounds like a conspiracy theorist. The reason you want me banned is because I'm speaking the truth. I'm giving the truth. You guys don't like it. You want the blue pill. You're betas. You can't handle the truth. That's why you want me boycotted. That's why you suspended my bank account. He sounds like Alex Jones, frankly, right now. We want you boycotted. Well, let me not say we. I don't really care personally. I don't have an opinion, but some people want you boycotted because you have lied about Islam. You've mistreated your Muslim guests. Whereas when you have a non-Muslim or a Jewish guest specifically, you don't grill them the same way. You don't use certain terms like extremist. You don't use certain terms like radical. You don't question or attack them for their personal beliefs. And let's also take into consideration the Muslim world has been on the defensive for decades. For a long time, they've been on the defensive because you guys can't stay the hell out of our countries. You guys have been in Afghanistan, have been in Iraq, have contributed to the downfall of Yemen and Syria and Lebanon, funded Israel to attack these countries, Muslim countries, all while dehumanizing them, calling them radical extremists, backwards, coming for our liberalism and democracy and all this stuff. We've been on the back foot. We've been on the defense. So when we talk about these things, we have to basically go the extra mile to try and explain. And in us going the extra mile to try and explain our beliefs, people like you, weasels like you, like to jump in and try and make us look even worse, try and make us look bad, try and dehumanize us, try and make us look extreme, which is the same nonsensical rhetoric they used to justify the Iraq war, which you went against. And you're so proud about it too. At least stay consistent. If that was you in 2004, then I wish you would go back to 2004. Bring back 2004 Piers.
Muslim fan base, I don't know. You're trying to convince them that what we saw through the eyes of Hamas's own technology, where they gloated and boasted about what they'd done, didn't happen.
No,
and you want me to think,
not at
and you want me to think that even though you
Not at all.
articulated, hang on, you articulated a description of terrorism
He's talking
and
so
then said
much,
that didn't
man.
apply to October the 7th, even though that's exactly what happened. You see, I would say that's delusional. I would say it's deliberately misleading, as was the attempt to try and make me apologize to Muslim women for apparently
course,
calling
you
them
stand by that
oppressed,
comment.
which I didn't do.
And you stand by that comment.
Which I didn't. Yes,
You couldn't care less about the offense caused to 1 billion Muslim women.
Yeah, but
or 1.8
I've
billion
explained to
Muslims
you-
about talking about jihad and
No,
Sharia,
no.
the sacred law of Muslims.
There was a deliberate attempt to misquote me out
No,
of
there
context
wasn't.
to try and make out that it's the way you interpreted it. Anyone who watched the whole exchange knew what I was doing.
That's
when
a
you have
lie.
a
That's
member
a
of that
filthy
group
lie. That's
talking
a
about
filthy lie.
filthy
Israel has
feminism.
committed terrorism.
Sorry? No, I
Israel
don't.
has-
No.
Okay. Do you believe state actors can commit terrorism?
It's possible.
It's possible, but you don't believe Israel has.
I do not.
With those figures that are screaming at you at your face.
If you'd watched the show last night, you would have seen my monologue was a strident criticism.
I don't watch your monologues so religiously.
You know what? Maybe you should watch a bit more if you want to boycott the show. If you want people to stop watching me, it might be useful if you ever watch
No,
it.
I do watch it here and there.
Yeah,
listen
but
to me.
do you though?
Yeah, I do.
Dilly?
No,
Or do you watch the odd
Oh
little
my
clip
God.
on social
Okay, it's not
media
at all. The
that's been
issue
taken out of
is-
context and then you say,
the issue-
boycott this guy?
The issue isn't about
Bro, the way
boycotting
his
Piers
hand went in
Morgan
the
per
guy's
se.
camera.
It's about unless you rectify the way you deal with your Muslim guests, then boycott is on the options. That's what it is. Now, if you're saying to me, did Hamas commit an act of terrorism? I've made it abundantly clear. It was a military offensive by various factions, not just Hamas. Now,
It wasn't a military offensive.
what was it? What was it?
It was a terrorist attack against predominantly civilians
But yet-
who were brutalized, they were tortured,
But
they were
7,000 children,
burned,
7,000
some were
children,
beheaded.
decapitated Palestinian children isn't terrorism, is it? 7,000 children dead,
I have-
without heads, without heads.
Again, if you had
without heads,
again,
without limbs.
Again, if you had watched my show last night, you would have heard exactly what my view of this
there a war
was.
crime?
But here's the thing:
Is there a war
you
crime?
did. The president of the United States thinks they've been indiscriminately bombing.
So basically, you're just going to parrot whatever Biden says.
No,
Is that what it is?
no. I'm going to say,
Do you not have a conscience of your
if the president of the United States has intelligence of indiscriminate bombing, that is a
doesn't.
war crime.
No, why does it have to be only the president of the United States? Why? Where would that intelligence come from? You know, Israel has an AI system. They use AI actually to detect, and they break it down to 4 different categories. And who cares really if it is intentional, indiscriminate, or if it's super precise, when the result of it has been 20,000 innocent civilians killed and probably just 100 Hamas militants? Who needs intent, malintent, no intent, when you have those numbers, those figures, and those results? Do you really need it? Do you need Israel to come out and be like, yeah, we did it on purpose, for you to be like, condemned? I'm not going to Starbucks anymore. Is that what you need? Very sad.
We've heard the denial.
Took 70 days.
We've heard the denial. But if it turns out United States has intelligence of indiscriminate bombing, that is a war crime, and I will call it for what it is. Right?
So
Is
what-
what-
so
is
what
what's
Hamas
going?
did?
Is
What
what's
Hamas-
hang on? Is what's going on in Gaza horrible? Yes. Is it disproportionate? I believe it is. Are they going to win against Hamas and wipe them all out? I don't think they are. Is America going to lose
Is it
patience
ethnic
very
cleansing?
soon?
Is it
Yes.
ethnic cleansing?
It's not ethnic cleansing.
Is it
and it's
genocide?
not genocide. No,
Okay.
it's not.
Okay.
Because that actually involves the eradication of an entire people. If they wanted
That's
to,
a lie.
they could
That's
drop
a lie.
nuclear bomb on Gaza.
That's a filthy lie. Let's look at what the definition of genocide is. They break it down to 4 sections here. And it's a part of the Genocide Convention. A mental element. So there's both physical harm and mental harm that can be done. So the intent to destroy in whole or in part. It could be all of them or it could be a part of them. That's what he doesn't quote. This is the UN, by the way. This is the actually the Genocide Convention, which is international law, which is still in effect today. People on the basis of nationality, ethnicity, race, or religion. And then there's the physical element, which includes the following 5 acts, enumerated exhaustively. Killing members of the group, clearly there. Causing seriously bodily or mental harm to members of the group, done, 100% has been done. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Below the UN recommended amount of water. Sieges with water, food, humanitarian aid, fuel, electricity, all that stuff. They control the sea, the airspace, and the land, what goes in, what comes out, who goes in and who comes out. They at one point calculated the bare minimum amount of calories they need just so they don't starve to death. Majority of the people in there suffer from severe food insecurity. And they're basically sitting in a concentration camp just waiting to die. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. That is not specifically being done there. They've done that in other groups, which I won't get into now. But that hasn't been specifically done in Gaza in the way that they're specifically preventing births, because there happened a lot of births in Gaza. But strictly the measures that they've put them in, the conditions they put them in, would make it more difficult to give birth. If anything, the Palestinians just don't want to give up that possibility, so they keep extending their families and giving birth, and then forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Now that has happened in one sense in the West Bank, when they take kids and they basically throw them in prison. But for the most part, that's not how Israel rolls. They don't really care about moving one group to another place. They try and displace them out into other countries, but they don't really want to take people and move them to other places. Where are they going to go anyway? So it wouldn't really make sense. So they just kind of bomb them all indiscriminately. And that's just genocide, which is the worst one. There's also ethnic cleansing, which is, I'd say at the very least what Israel's doing. This is probably too much for Piers. He stopped at this part. The intent to destroy in whole, and he just was like, whoop, that's all I need. That's all I need.
Kill everybody there.
We've already had those
That would be
suggestions.
genocide. I don't believe it qualifies as genocide, right? And these terms are...
Who cares what you believe? There's a definition for a reason, Piers. I don't care about your thoughts on what it should be defined as. We have definitions for that. I just want you, I'll tell you what I want you to do. I don't want you to say, no, it's not. I want you to read the definition and then come to the conclusion that you either have to sound stupid and say that it's not genocide, or you have to be like, well, I mean, the definition's there. They clearly have done that, as they've reported and other human rights organizations have reported, how people, journalists on the ground in Gaza have reported, the medics and the doctors have reported, the people have recorded it, not just recorded it on their phones and posted it. Over 2/3 of the entire world, majority, like 150 countries plus, voted for a ceasefire. It's kind of undeniable at this point. That's what I want you to say. That's what I want you to do. It's almost a rhetorical question.
Important. Are the Palestinians being
Norman
treated?
Finkelstein believes.
Are the Palestinians,
Starvation
as
plus
he's
diet.
articulated
Yeah,
last night at length
that's what
and
it
very
is.
powerfully?
Yeah.
And we had a very reasonable conversation, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? I commend you to watch it. Go back and watch it, and maybe you wouldn't be calling for boycotts. Right? I don't think you.
This guy, all he cares about is the boycott. I swear, that's all he cares about.
It's not quite
Watch me sit with Bassem Youssef for 2 hours
Okay.
and really try and get under the weeds of this conflict with somebody who can talk me all through it, right?
So why didn't Mohammed Hijab get that same treatment? Low-key get that same treatment?
But
Why
they
didn't
have.
Sam Zomra get that same
They
treatment?
have.
Do you know how religiously I have actually watched certain episodes? That on average you interrupt your Muslim guest 21.3 seconds.
Really?
What's your views on that?
Did you watch the Bassem Youssef interview?
No. I said
I literally interviewed him for more than any other guest.
Excluding Bassam Youssef.
Oh, excluding him.
Excluding
How many
Bassam
others do you want to
Youssef.
exclude? There was another Palestinian doctor
Andrew
that I interviewed at length.
Andrew
I never
Johnson,
interrupted him
Andrew
once.
Whenever you've had segments where it's 15, 20 minutes with a Muslim guest, why do you interrupt every
No,
27.3
it's not.
seconds?
You know who it is I interrupt? It's the extreme elements.
Oh, so you're now throwing these labels.
Yeah.
Why am I extreme?
Like, I think
Explain to your viewers why am I extreme.
Because your attempt to deny what happened on October the 7th is an extremist response.
You call me an
Your
extremist.
refusal to call it terrorism
that's
is an
it. So
extremist
there we have it.
response.
There we have it. So I believe you're an Islamophobe and a genocide enabler for not using the correct term to describe Israel's indiscriminate genocide.
That's fine. You're perfectly entitled to call me that.
There we are.
You've got to actually produce evidence of that.
Produce evidence of that.
Yeah,
Are 7,000 children without
I am not
names and heads?
remotely Islamophobic.
Yeah.
Never have been.
Carry on.
Never will be. Right? Ever. Right back to when I led the campaign against Iraq.
Why does he go back to when I was 4 years old? He goes back to when I was 4. Literally, I was a baby eating cheese and crackers in the corner. I was a child. I was 4 years old, and he's talking about back then. He had started a campaign against the government to not go to Iraq. We're talking about what you said last week, my man. Last week. Don't go back 20 years ago. Oh my Lord.
War in this country against my own government. Right? Never have been. It's an ugly slur you've tossed around because you've seen some misconstrued clips from an interview with a guy who wanted to deny that Hamas are terrorists or they committed a terror attack. And the reason you did that and what fueled it is because you yourself don't think what happened on October the 7th was terror.
I firmly echo the sentiments of the 91% of 13,550 people polled that believe you're an Islamophobe.
Let me ask you, if you want to boycott and shut me up and not give me any exposure.
That was never the end goal, by the way. It was always a case of the community reviewing how we engage with people.
But you want to stop Muslims coming on the show?
Unless you fix up the way you engage with them, yeah.
Okay, so what are you doing here?
Huh? What am I doing here? I nearly pulled out, believe it or not.
Why are you here?
I came this close. Oh, because Barati, your producer's been on my case.
Yeah, but why are you here?
To converse, to discuss.
You're a grown man.
Oh, I'm here to check whether
Did my booker bully you into it?
Who bullied you into it?
Did my booker bully you into it?
Not at all.
So why are you here?
I'm here to ask you squarely, are you an Islamophobe?
No.
So can you clarify those statements about Muslim women being oppressed?
I've already clarified
and you've not apologized for it. So that means you stand by it.
I've clarified it.
Stand by it. What do you know about Sharia law?
I clarified it for you.
Do you apologize?
I've also clarified that
I've also
clarified that you believe the Taliban is oppressing women in Afghanistan.
No, I believe.
See how he just shifts it, and it's weird because Piers is very good at completely ruining any line of thought that you have, any train of thought. Because he'll just ask you the most insane question in the world. If you're asking him why he said something, he'll just ask you a question that is so crazy, you feel like you need to defend yourself. If you ask him, why did you say such a statement? You need to apologize. He'll be like, well, let me answer you. And then he'll cut everyone's line of thinking off. And he'll be like, do you think the Taliban's implementing Sharia correctly? Why are they oppressing women there? Do you support that? And all of a sudden you're like, well, I have to defend myself. You actually don't. You could just stay firm on the question and say, we're not going to continue this interview until you address my questions. I didn't come here to be interrogated. I came here to have a conversation. It's my turn to ask. You have not answered. Answer adequately. I don't have to continue this conversation.
How easy it is to twist things? See how easy it is to twist things?
Pierce,
we can have a story.
Anyone who rejects Pierce's version, which is basically the Israeli version of events, they're an extremist. They're terrorist sympathizers. Who are you going to tag after this interview? You've got no one to tag, have you?
I think the story out of this will be that you have attacked the Taliban for their treatment of women.
Who are you going to tag?
Which is kind of ironic, isn't it?
Who are you going to tag?
Huh?
Who are you going to tag after this exchange?
Who am I going to tag?
So
Oh, you mean
petty.
Oh, I did.
So petty. Like he's acting like a little girl. I think people are going to gossip about how you said this about Brittany. I think that's what this whole school is going to be talking about. That's what he sounds like. Is this really all that matters to you? Is this what's important to you, Piers? That people don't boycott your show and that people strike headlines at Muslims and not at you? Is that what matters here? I really don't know what he's on.
I'll tell you why I tagged that. I'll tell you why.
We're going to
Because I genuinely believe it is wrong that a doctor in the NHS in this
25 years
country
to have this community.
can publicly support a terrorist group which is an illegal entity in this country. Hang on, Hamas is a prescribed terror group. He said what they did was resistance. That is supporting them. It is not saying they're a terror group. This country says they are. What he did was a crime. By coming on this program, it's a crime. You may not think so.
When did you become the law enforcement agency of the
No,
Kingdom?
I'm sorry. I'm not the law enforcement agency.
You're a journalist.
It is a criminal.
CPS.
It is a criminal,
CPS.
as you know from those who've been supporting Hamas at the protests. Okay. If you publicly support a prescribed terror group in this country, it is a crime.
So choosing to face resistance over terrorism is support. Is that what you're saying?
It is support, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So can I just ask you just one last thing?
Sure.
One last thing. The act of Great Britain in liberating Europe under Nazi occupation was resistance.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't resistance.
Of course it was resisting.
We were
you're resisting a foreign invader in the continent.
Right, we were taking down the Nazis.
Okay, you're taking out...
Look at his misrepresentation of it. We were just taking down this group of people. You were resisting the group of people.
So according to the Palestinians, they're taking down the Israeli-occupied colonial settlers. Do you see where we can just carry on? We can just carry on. What do we do?
He's so flabbergasted. He doesn't know what to say. He didn't know how to respond. He was trying to think of something witty and he couldn't come up with anything. So he's probably going to say something ridiculously dumb.
Here's the thing.
What do we do?
I want to have that conversation.
Can we have it more respectfully in
the
future?
Yes, we can.
Wicked.
But don't try and launch a boycott to stop
We can have a respectful conversation as long as you don't tell people please stop telling them to boycott my show. We can talk. Just stop the boycott. That's what he sounds like. Let's just have the conversation. And then if you can have a conversation that is fair, then maybe people won't want to boycott you. I'm not advocating for or against it. Again, personally, I don't care. But have the fair conversation first. And then why would anybody want to boycott you afterwards? If you were as fair as you think you are in the representation of Palestinian voices on your show, then people would not want to be boycotting you. So the fact that they are should make you question whether you are actually being impartial and fair or not.
The one guy who's putting up more Palestinian voices than anyone else in the world.
Why do you interrupt every 27.3 seconds with most of your Muslim guests?
If you'd watched last night for the whole show, you would have seen I didn't. Okay. It depends.
Last night was Norman Finkelstein. And the lawyer, professor, I forget his name, Dershowitz. There was no Muslim on the show. Unless he's talking about something else that I'm mistaken, which maybe. But last time he mentioned last night, he was talking about Norman Finkelstein. He wasn't a Muslim.
It's who the guest is and how they're behaving.
Have I angered you today?
Well, only when you don't answer questions.
Which question of his have I not answered?
A lot. You won't even realise it. Go back and watch it.
Oh my God, I hate when he does this. Is this what women have to deal with when they speak with narcissistic men? Is this what they have to deal with? Because it's very annoying, frankly. It's really annoying. Just go back and watch it. The whole world knows and you don't. It's like, that's how he sounds. I wish we could have a live audience to chime in. Like a fair live audience to chime in. I think they used to do that on one of the shows in Britain before, in the UK. I don't know what it was, but Dilly Hussain, I think he's been on it before. That would be beautiful because they could publicly jump in and be like, Piers, you're kind of stupid. Actually, I disagree with you. As a Muslim woman, I disagree with you. How many Muslim women would have said that exact statement? You did offend me. What is he going to say to that? What would he say to that?